Tron 3 is arguably one of the most anticipated sci-fi sequels with such a highly uncertain future. This is mostly due to the latest Tron Legacy receiving a mixed critical reception, although being considered to be a relative success in the box office. The audiences liked the movie quite a bit, which resulted in a lot of loyal following among the fans. The story of the second film, though, had a lot of unanswered questions, which after 10 years we still did not get. But can that ever change? Will we see another take on the Tron franchise? Will we find out the fate of Quora in the human world? If the sequel happens, when are we likely to see it? 1 year? 10 years? We will talk about it all right now. My name is Mr. Feature, and without further ado, let's delve in. Tron is one of the most interesting and unique franchises out there. The story is set around Flint's family that go on a dangerous adventure in the world of programs. A world just like ours, where instead of living things, you can meet walking, talking and thinking programs. Both movies raise a lot of philosophical and ideological topics, all whilst delivering some groundbreaking visual set pieces. It's no surprise that so many of us are dying to see more of the Tron's world, especially after the one-season series Tron Uprising, which delved much deeper into the lore of the program's world, but was cancelled before satisfying the fans with all the desired answers. So the question of the day is, when and if Tron 3 will see the light of day? I tried my best to gather every tiny bit of news that there is out there to address this very problem. I want to section this investigation into two stages. First, we will talk about the Disney perspective. Why Tron 3 didn't happen right after Legacy, what might budge them to make one in the next couple of years or more, and at which stage, if any, the sequel is now. And then we will talk about what the cast and crew had been saying about Tron 3 in this past decade. Let's crack on. So why was Tron 3 cancelled at the time? Well, there are three main reasons. First, the long-coming sequel was not received well by critics. Many of the professional movie pundits praised the visual look and some touching beats, but mainly criticized the lack of the overall unique storytelling at its core. And sure, studios don't have to listen to the critics to decide whether to make a sequel or not. Venom is the best example of that. But the problem here is that Tron was already an established world, and the first movie received nothing but praise back when it was released. So it had a massive head start over the infamous symbiote. Besides, Venom did something that Tron Legacy didn't: earn a ton of cash. The second outing earned 400 million worldwide on a 170 million budget, which is technically a financial success. But for Disney, who expected to build something out of Tron along the MCU lines, this was not a green light at all. And if this was not enough, the third reason for putting Tron 3 on an indefinite delay is a complete failure of Tomorrowland, which made half of what Tron did in the box office a couple of years later on a 200 million budget. After another somewhat original sci-fi movie failing, Disney decided to stick to their established light-hearted superhero formulas, and that is essentially why we still do not have Tron 3 in 2020. But, as we all know, there is always hope. I think that Disney is now more than ever considering to revive Tron franchise. Why? Well, for once, MCU is now declining in its popularity, well, arguably. Sure, there is still a massive fan base and a lot of people are eager to see the new phases with the new films, but to achieve the success of Avengers movies without the original 6 in the films, they would have to start building from scratch. And perhaps an easier option would be to reboot, continue with Tron films and establish it as a long-running franchise rather than trying to reinvent the superhero formula. Think about it. We live in a day where technology is at the forefront of human civilization. There is no better time to make a movie about humans coexisting with a virtual world of programs. Plus, there is a massive cult following of fans who would pay anything to see the long-awaited sequel. If Disney plays this just right, they can ride this wave high and get the cash flowing, replicating MCU's success. But enough of speculation. What does the studio and the crew of Tron Legacy have to say about the future of the franchise? The latest words come from the director of Tron Legacy, Joseph Kosinski. Quote, "It's all about timing and the right elements, and everything got to come together for a movie to happen. I think it's possible and I think it's worthy of it." The director then went on to elaborate how a sequel would delve into the character of Quora and her trying to find a place in the real world. To be honest, that's exactly what everyone would expect after the ending of the second outing. Clearly the studio was ready to go on ahead with the sequel, and if the director is not ruling this out, then he probably is thinking about it every now and then. But on the other hand, perhaps the studio would want another director to tackle the movie since Tron 2 was not up the critics' alley. But as long as they are not actively denying its possibility, Tron 3 is pretty safe. Talking about the studio and financial support of the movie, the producer attached to Legacy, Justin Springer, had this to say about the third outing. Look, I will never stop being interested in making a Tron movie. I love the opportunity to do it. It's a title that never really goes away internally. There's always people around the company who like it a whole lot. And so, we'll see what happens. It would be great to get the opportunity to do it again. It's interesting. What I will say is that I think it continues to be relevant both in its ideas and also just the visual iconography of it. I think people are still interested in it and it still feels contemporary to me. So it's just about finding the right time, right script and the right people, and the studio saying yes. You know, just the usual. Also, all cast members including Garrett Hedlund, Olivia Wilde, Jeff Bridges and even Cillian Murphy expressed their interest to appear in a sequel many times. So clearly there's no objections there. So that's a lot of positive thinking. Clearly they know Tron has a moderate following and they know it has a potential. Finding the right time is a necessary requirement for any movie, and I believe, as we discussed before, now would be that very right time for Tron Revival. In fact, I don't imagine that there would be a better time to do it. If you wait too long, people might start to forget that this franchise ever existed. And also, if you didn't know, Tron 3 has an IMDb page and Jared Leto is officially attached to this film. This may give us hope above all else. We also know that he plays someone named Ares. That is a fitting name to a hacker character, maybe a friend of Sam Flynn, but I think Ares will be most likely an antivirus program of sorts, much like Tron perhaps. Or the opposite, a virus, a new tyrant on the grid. Who knows? Temptation to speculate is high, but for now, we better stick to what we know. So let's quickly recap what we learned so far. Disney wants to find the right time and crew to put Tron 3 through. The movie is not going anywhere, it's just sitting there waiting to be picked up. Director and producer of Tron 2 sound extremely confident in the sequel coming back sooner or later, both seemingly excited to get on board with the movie itself. The movie already has at the very least Jared Leto attached. The franchise has a loud and sound following, backed up by high interest and call for another sequel. Disney is entering somewhat of a stale age of Marvel superheroes and might be looking for a new, fresh franchises. Now, I don't know about you, but all of this sounds very convincing to me. In fact, I would go as far as to say that we will probably see Tron 3 happen before 2025, maybe even 2022. This is based on pure guess, of course, but with all things mentioned above, I believe Disney is now realizing that Tron 3 is a time-sensitive issue, which should be addressed relatively soon. With clear backing from both inside the studio and from the fans, we might see disc wars sooner than we think. But what do you think though, friends? Is everyone just sweet-talking BS and Tron 3 is a dead project? Or might it even come as a surprise next year? Are you even excited about the sequel, or do you think Legacy was a fitting end to the franchise? Or an unfitting end, which means there should be no more Tron movies? Let me know in the comments and I would love to hear and discuss this with you. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed, please hit the like button and subscribe for more content like this. I wish you a nice day, stay safe, and see you in the next one.